Good afternoon, everyone. For Telesur, I'm Cody Weddle in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin today in Mexico, where there are really more questions than answers after a truck carrying liquid gas exploded outside of a maternity hospital. The blast killed at least 3 people and injured 73. Authorities there have ordered an investigation into the accident. Neighbors say they smelled leaking gas sometime before the blast in the Coajimalpa neighborhood of the capital. Local media are asking why a chaotic gas industry isn't properly regulated. From Mexico City, here's our correspondent Clayton Kahn.
Today, 39 people remain hospitalized after yesterday morning's natural gas explosion at a maternity hospital here in Mexico City that left 3 dead. According to the mayor of Mexico City, Miguel Angel Mancera, 18 of those who remain in the hospital are in serious condition, with 9 of those being infants. According to the health minister, one of those babies has burns on 80% of its body, and the authorities are seeking to evacuate the child to Galveston, Texas in the United States to a special burns unit. Also late yesterday evening, Mexico's President Enrique Peña Nieto made a visit to a nearby hospital where the injured were taken, declaring that the hospital which saw the explosion, which also saw more than 60% of its structure collapse, will be rebuilt. As of now, 3 workers of the gas company Gas Express Nieto, which is believed to be behind the explosion, are detained and being charged with negligent manslaughter and damages. The gas explosion, which occurred at 7 a.m. on Thursday morning, struck the hospital filled with more than 110 people in the city's borough of Coajimalpa, a mostly working-class neighborhood. This is Clayton Kahn reporting for Telesur here in Mexico City.
Thanks to Clayton. We now go to Colombia, where former presidential candidate Oscar Zuluaga and an ally of former right-wing President Alvaro Uribe is being questioned over an alleged plot to spy on the peace talks between the government and FARC rebels. Zuluaga shares Uribe's hardline stance against the peace process. He lost Colombia's presidential election to Juan Manuel Santos last June. We're going to go to our correspondent, Natalia Margarita. She is outside the Attorney General's office in Bogota, and she joins us live now. Natalia, what do we know about these allegations against Zuluaga? Who was his team allegedly spying on, and how do prosecutors say they were doing that?
Hi there, Cody. Yes, in fact, in 2012, presidential candidate of Uribe Zuluaga was called Tuesday last week into questioning by the Attorney General office. He was called over his alleged role in the illegal spying on the ongoing peace talks, allegedly carried out by his campaign team. It is important to know that he was running on behalf of the Democratic Center, the political party of former President Alvaro Uribe, which we already know that is a prominent opponent to the peace process. So today he's expected to give his testimony here at the Attorney General's headquarters in Bogota, where he already arrived around 10 a.m. local time. At his arrival, he didn't spoke to media, but he said that after giving his testimony, he will offer a public statement. So we're waiting for this public statement by him. Just to contextualize a little bit, today's development comes following a scandal of espionage on the Colombia's peace talks. This scandal was revealed on media last year and involved a spying ring that was secretly labeled as Andromeda. This secret ring, a spying ring, was carrying out activities such as illegal wiretaping, the leaking of classified information and documents, and the creation of a database with email of left-wing politicians and journalists linked to the ongoing peace process in Havana. Also, there was an important development last week that is linked to this case, and is that the Inspector General, Cesar Augusto Narvaez of the Colombian Armed Forces, announced last Friday that 20 of its members have been removed from their current duties, and another 3 officers have been expelled from the institution after an investigation that proved that they were involved in these illegal spying activities over the peace process. So we're waiting here from the headquarters of the Attorney General to see what Oscar Iván Zuluaga is going to say after giving his testimony.
Okay, Natalia, do we have any clues at this point of what we could see next? Is there any indication that charges could be brought against Zuluaga? Has he made any talk of trying to flee the country, anything of that nature?
We still need to wait. We need to take into account that it was not just Oscar Iván Zuluaga, the one that was called into questioning, but also his son, David Zuluaga, who was very active during his father, Oscar Iván Zuluaga, presidential campaign, and also Luis Alfonso Hoyos, that is the so-called spiritual advisor of Zuluaga's campaign. Both of them are also called into questioning, but by now they are in the United States. So we need to await also to have these testimonies from these two persons that has also been called by the Attorney General's office to see what is going to happen next. So basically, after today, we're awaiting for these testimonies that should be given by, as I said before, the son of Oscar Iván Zuluaga, and the so-called spiritual advisor, Luis Alfonso Hoyos.
All right, Natalia, thanks so much for your reporting there. We know you'll continue to keep an eye on it and bring us the latest developments. From Colombia, we go next door to Venezuela, where the country is ramping up its efforts to defeat the economic war being waged against the government by the country's conservative opposition. A committee of international intellectuals has been formed with the aim of proposing new economic strategies to fight speculation, hoarding, and contraband in the country. Part of the strategy of the new group will be to highlight the social gains made in Venezuela over the past 15 years of the Bolivarian Revolution.
Poverty was at 60% before the revolution, and now it is 20%. Extreme poverty was at 15%, and now it is at 5%. We haven't been able to lower it more because we still need the capitalist model to disappear in favor of a socialist model of growth.
Private investors are also becoming involved in the efforts to boost Venezuela's economic capacity. That's the case with the so-called Factory of Factories in the state of Miranda, which is focusing on producing machinery for further industrial development. The plant has been operating with 80% private investment and is taking advantage of Venezuela's wealth in raw materials, including iron and aluminum.
We don't need to bring machines from abroad because we already have them here in Venezuela. It's a question of wanting to use them. I started here and I'm not going anywhere. I'm a Venezuelan and I want to help my country.
Good news to report for residents of Chile. According to figures released by the government, unemployment fell to 6% in the last quarter of 2014. Now, the numbers show surprising resilience in the labor market in spite of an economic slowdown. According to the National Institute of Statistics, the slight reduction in unemployment reflects an increase in salaried jobs as well as heightened agricultural activity. In Ecuador, the nation's Congress is taking up the debate around land reform. Representatives of the rural population are contributing to the debate, arguing for a redistribution of land in order to guarantee food sovereignty. Advocates of the agrarian reform argue Ecuador suffers from a high level of inequality in land ownership and needs to diversify its crop production. Taking a look around the world, representatives of the rebel fighters in eastern Ukraine are on their way home again after just arriving in Belarus for peace talks. The rebels say the scheduled peace negotiations have been called off because the government delegation didn't turn up. This comes after shells hit a cultural center and a trolley bus in the eastern city of Donetsk, killing at least 6 people. Rebel leaders are accusing Kiev of trying to avoid a real dialogue. Economic discussions kicked off in Greece today as the head of the Eurozone finance ministers group arrived in Athens to speak with the new Greek Prime Minister Alexis Tsipras and his finance minister. The new socialist leader was elected on a strong anti-austerity platform. This meeting marks the start of Greece's negotiations changing the conditions of its 240 billion euro bailout.
Your country, my own country.
At least 49 people have been killed in an explosion at a Shiite mosque in Pakistan during Friday afternoon prayers. The blast occurred in the southern city of Shikarpur. According to police, it was caused either by a suicide bomber or an explosive device. Russia has increased its efforts to resolve disagreements that are blocking a possible resolution to Syria's three-year conflict. The violence there has left hundreds of thousands of people dead and millions more displaced. Nashwan Abdullah reports from Syria.
Representatives underway in Moscow ended Thursday. The latest meeting included two sessions which addressed mutual principles including Syrians' sovereignty and unity, fighting terrorism, opposing external intervention, and keeping the Syrian army.
The humanitarian crisis and the situation of the political prisoners are the most important points which the opposition figures have revealed and the government delegation has considered.
According to a Russian official, the opposition blocs have presented their points separately. Another meeting is predicted for the next month in Moscow. The Iranian embassy culture advisor in Syria, Dr. Tamer Mustafa, noted how Russia is confirming its important role in the region.
Russia is trying to gather all the Syrian national factions to reach an internal solution to end the conflict and force out all external forces.
However, some note how these efforts are being undermined by US allies in the Middle East and elsewhere that continue to aid terrorist groups in Syria. Nashwan Abdullah, Telesur, Damascus, Syria.
The Egyptian wing of the Islamic State group has officially claimed responsibility for a string of attacks that killed 32 people and wounded dozens. The attacks took place after celebrations around the anniversary of Egypt's 2011 uprising and have been some of the most violent in the country in months. For more now on the clashes in Egypt and how they are affecting Palestinians, we go to our correspondent Noor Harazin.
Despite the fact that it's a calm day here in the Gaza Strip today, but the residents are fearing what has been happening in the Egyptian Sinai for the past hours and also last night. It all started last night when the residents of Gaza heard explosions, and in fact, at the first moment they thought that it's Israeli airstrikes on the Gaza Strip. However, we got the news later that it's clashes between terrorists and the Egyptian army in Sinai. The residents are fearing such escalation because it comes 2 days after another escalation that happened between Hezbollah and Israel. At the same time, the residents are feeling that such escalation will threaten the opening of Rafah border, especially that the Egyptian government said that they could be another opening for Rafah border this week.
In related news, on Friday, the Israeli government published property offers for 450 new housing units to be constructed in occupied Palestinian territory. The units are being offered in a number of locations, including in East Jerusalem and several West Bank cities such as Hebron. Under international law, the West Bank and East Jerusalem are occupied territories, deeming all Jewish settlement building on the land illegal. And Islamic State group militants struck several positions in Iraq on Friday, attacking Kurdish forces southwest of the city of Kirkuk and killing at least 21 people in blasts in Baghdad and Samarra. The northern Kurdish-controlled area of Kirkuk has not typically been the target of attacks until recently. African leaders are gathering in Ethiopia's capital of Addis Ababa to kick off the 24th annual African Union Summit. Leaders from the 54 nation bloc will meet to discuss a variety of issues, including women's empowerment, economic development, and the Boko Haram insurgency in Nigeria. Many rights groups have shown concern that Robert Mugabe, The former controversial leader of Zimbabwe will be named the union's new chairman. Taking a look at culture, Friday marks the 65th anniversary of Chilean poet Pablo Neruda's Canto General. Published in 1950, the epic poem is considered his most important work, considered a political chronicle as well as a biography of Latin America. Canto General was banned by the dictatorships of South America, which ruled the continent in the 1970s. India is celebrating its 7th edition of the Indian Art Fair in New Delhi this week. The fair, which opened on Thursday, features more than 3,000 works by local and international artists. Locals have praised the fair for putting India on the international art map. Plenty more on those stories and others at our website, telesurtv.net/English. For Telesur English, I'm Cody Weddle. Hope you have a great weekend.